Hey guys, Ryan Laniak with Coach 'em to Keep 'em. Welcome. Today we are going to talk about something that I really enjoy. Um, this is the difference between the fear of rejection and the pain of rejection. And the reason I want to dive into this is because whether you are in this group trying to help yourself deal with rejection better, if you're in this group because you are hoping to help your team handle rejection better, understanding the way that the fear and pain of rejection interact with each other is crucial. And once you have that understanding, it really allows you to manipulate it and leverage it and change it so that you can use it rather than allowing yourself to just be subjected to the way that it's supposed to be. And that's really what it's all about. And I wanted to take some time and talk about this today because I was having this conversation with a client the other day, and they were talking about their team and how they just were just petrified of rejection. And what it turned out was they were doing, and he was at the forefront of this, thinking that he was doing it to show them that the fear of rejection, it's not that bad. But what he was doing was solidifying how bad rejection could be. And it was just something so subtle that he thought was helping was actually making it, we don't even know how much worse, but it was making it worse just based on the results. So when you look at the pain of rejection, we talked about it a little bit last week. The pain is always about suffering, right? If you think about the pain of a broken bone or something like that, it hurts, right? It's always going to hurt. And that's really the key about the pain of rejection is that it's mental. Very rarely, and I know a couple of weeks ago I talked about the time I got hit in the face with a no soliciting clipboard when I was doing door-to-door sales and my nose bled. That was the only time that I've ever been rejected in a physical manner. Now, in most cases, in the business professional world, you're not going to be rejected in a physical manner. It's all going to be mental. That's where the pain comes from. The pain doesn't come from some external source. It comes from inside. It comes from you and how you're reacting to it. And that's great, but it's also bad because, as we mentioned last week, that you can actually continue to experience it. And if you look at the four levels of rejection that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, you experience that pain in the real moment, right? When it's happening, you experience that pain. You automatically go to that position where now you're starting to feel those emotions. You're starting to feel that anger, that frustration, that self-doubt, that shame, that guilt, whatever it is. And then as you move down that, you relive those emotions and that pain as you go back and think about it, as you talk to your team or your upline or your boss or your wife or your friends about that rejection. You experience it as if it's actually happening again. And the reason why is because our brain is able to create those same emotions just as powerfully as if it's happening now. If you think about breaking a bone, you can't recreate that pain. And even if you think about it, you can remember that, hey, yeah, it hurts, but that's about it. You can't really experience that pain again because the brain doesn't work that way. So you can experience that pain on all of these different levels in that imagined rejection level and that expected rejection level. And now, not only are you experiencing it as you go through it, you're also experiencing it as you're reliving it. You're experiencing it in situations where there might not even be a rejection. And then you're experiencing it in those situations before it even happens, where you start expecting the rejection. And that's when things get really, really difficult. And as you continue doing that, what's happening is you're basically conditioning yourself that that's the way rejection is, that it hurts, that all of these feelings that you have associated with it are the feelings that are supposed to be associated with it. So now, whenever you start getting close to a situation where you can be rejected, you automatically kind of preload those feelings because you know that that's the way you're supposed to feel when you get rejected. And here's the thing, and I took this from some ultra marathon runners and some research I was doing on them, and it never always gets worse, right? When you're running an ultra marathon, which is anything longer than a traditional marathon, which is 26.2 miles, so like 50 kilometers, 50 miles, 100 miles, all of those things, right? Those are ultra marathons. When you're running that distance, it hurts. You know that it's going to hurt. But that hurt eventually doesn't hurt anymore, right? It never always gets worse. And that's a key concept to understand when going through rejection. And we're going to talk about on Thursday ways that people avoid hearing no, and some ways to tell if you have a rejection problem or not. And it's really remarkable to me how many people will do so many different things to avoid hearing no, and not realizing that they're the ones causing this. And that's the key distinction that I want you to take away from today, is that when it comes to the pain of rejection, you're the one causing it. It's not the person rejecting you. It's not anything, any external factor. It is you. It's all up here. It's all how you choose to associate that with those negative emotions. And when you continue doing that, you continue reinforcing it, which continues you just defaulting to it, making it automatic. And that's where it makes it painful. And the pain of rejection actually leads to the fear of rejection, right? And when you look at the fear of rejection, that's when things get a little bit bad. This is what leads to people quitting, right? If you can manage and understand that pain and change the default programs so that you don't go into these negative emotions and this anger, this frustration, this jealousy, all of those things that are associated with rejection, this self-doubt, this pity, all of those things, then you're able to avoid that fear of rejection. But very few of us are able to do that. And when you do that and you give into that fear of rejection, what's happening is that fear causes dread. And this is going to live really in that expected rejection, right? This is when you're going to start expecting rejection when you go into a sales call, a recruiting appointment, wherever, right? You just expect that you're just going to get rejected. And now you're dreading it, right? You're anticipating a bad result, something undesirable. You're anticipating that it's not going to go the way that you want to. And again, this can be real or imagined. And in most cases, it's imagined, right? There's very few situations, again, in business where you're physically threatened, right? Very few situations. And when you lock into it hurts you, and it causes you to stop taking action. It causes you to procrastinate. It causes you to live in that pain and re-experiencing that pain over and over and over again, to the point that now it's as if that's already happened, and you're going into the situation with those emotions preloaded, and that's not good. And here's the thing about fear. Feeling that fear of rejection, being afraid of rejection, is a choice, right? And the way that you think about that fear or that pain is what's going to determine whether or not you choose fear. So going back to the client that I talked about earlier on, what he was doing was he was sharing his examples of rejection and how he had gone through it, which in theory is a great idea. Yeah, let your team know that, hey, yeah, I went through this. I've been through it. I came out the other side. But the way he was doing it and the way he was talking about it was painting such an ugly picture of rejection that he faced, that they automatically defaulted to, I don't think I can go through that. And it was making it worse. And what he was doing was creating this idea that it was so much worse than they had it. And what that did was created the expectation that if they wanted to get to where he was, they would have to go through much worse than what they were expecting. And if that didn't align, that, which it didn't for most of these people, they would just sit back and let it fly, right? Just let things go by. So the key here is to understand whether or not you are feeding your fear. And when I talk about feeding your fear of rejection, it's a matter of how often are you talking about it? In what manner are you talking about it? Are you looking at it and talking about it as an opportunity, right? Rejection is an opportunity to learn from, right? Learn things that you can do better. Learn all of these different things. What did you do wrong? What approach did you take there that didn't work? What could you have done differently? All those different things. And we'll talk about those as we move through the month of June now, I guess. But so many people don't talk about that. They just talk about how much of an asshole that guy was. What a jerk. Oh, I can't believe how rude he was. I can't believe he's not answering my phone calls. What kind of human being does that? All of these different things. And as a leader, you have to be very, very careful not to do that with your team, because if you start feeding that fear, that's going to make the experience that they have that much worse. And then when you look at the pain, you really need to change the perception of that pain. And to do that, you have to really change the perception of rejection. And I'm not saying just think of it as a good thing, because rejection is not a good thing. It goes against, like we talked about last week with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it goes against that sense of love and belonging that's crucial to sustaining our motivation, right? We need to feel like we're loved and we belong and we're contributing and all those things. And so it goes against that. So what do? Well, you, like those runners that know that pain's part of it, understand that rejection's part of it, right? But you also need to understand that rejection is not a reflection on you. It's not a reflection on them. It's really a reflection about how you are thinking about it. And when you change that, then you can change the way that you're responding, right? You can change those emotions that you go to. You won't be defaulting right to those horrible negative emotions. You'll be defaulting to the more empowering emotions. You'll look at it just differently. And instead of it being pain and negative and living in that, now you're changing how you're living in it. And you're moving into something that's productive, that's serving you, that's going to propel you forward instead of shut you down. Okay, so we're going to be back here on Thursday afternoon. We're going to be talking about the ways that rejection shows up and the ways that it can slow you down. And you might see some of these things in your life. You might see it in some of your team's life. You might see it in a whole bunch of different areas. But the key is to understanding what to do when you do see it show up like that. And we're going to talk about that on Thursday. So guys, again, make sure if you found this valuable, if you know people that are struggling with rejection, if you have a team or you know somebody on a team that has people that are quitting because they just can't handle it, let them know about this group. Add them to the group. We'll make sure that I approve them, get them in here, and help them. This is what the group's all about, is about helping people master rejection. So that being said, I will see you guys back here on Thursday afternoon. Take care.